in particular Britain, and also France, but more so Britain. They did many things in the Muslim world in order to bring about the destruction of the Khilafah, and I will touch on some of those things. One of the things they did was promote nationalism. So they set up many associations in Turkey and in the other parts of the Arab world, for example in Beirut, in Damascus, in Cairo. They set up various associations. And many of these associations were set up by kuffar. They were not set up by Muslims, they were set up by Christians, in fact, who had a hatred against Islam at that time. And they used to distribute leaflets. And some of their leaflets, they used the leaflets which they distributed in the Arab world. They used to accuse Turkey that Turkey has taken the Khilafah from the Arabs. Turkey has violated the Sharia. Turkey has abused the deen. And this was written by people who were kuffar. The ones who ran these associations were kuffar, they were not Muslims. But they were inciting the Muslims, the Arabs, that the Turks have taken the Khilafah. This Khilafah is for the Arabs. And they incited the Turks, that these Arabs are not Turkish. You Turkish people are more important than the Arabs. So they created this incitement. They incited nationalism amongst the Turks. And we had, for example, in 1889, the establishment of the Young Turks on the basis of Turkish nationalism. And in addition to that, they used many agents in the Muslim world. One of the most famous of those agents, Mustafa Kemal, they call him the father of Turkey. But we know that many Muslims would not call him in such an eloquent way. Because really this is a man, may Allah curse him, the one who plotted with the West, Britain in particular, to destroy the Khilafah. And he was the one who went on to abolish the Khilafah. And he was a member of the Young Turks. So he was a product of that nationalism, brothers and sisters. And later he said, and this tells you very clearly, he said, was it not because of the Khilafah, Islam and the clergy that the Turkish peasants fought and died for 5 centuries? It is high time Turkey looked after her own interests and ignored the Indians and the Arabs. Turkey should rid itself of leading the Muslims. So this man, brothers and sisters, was an agent of the British. They loved him. Yeah. Apart from agents and nationalism, the kuffar did many, many things. To add to that weakness in the understanding of Islam, they tried to make the understanding weaker. And they did many things to do that. So one of the things they did, for example, is they invented false hadith. The hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they made many hadith which are complete lies. For example, one of the hadith they said, Hubb al-watan fi ad-din. They said this is hadith. Love of the land, love of one's homeland, of one's watan, is from the deen. When we know Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the authentic hadith has made it very clear that this filthy thing called nationalism, asabiya, is a filthy thing, and not to go near this thing, and not to touch it. Do not call for it, do not work for it. But to aid themselves, they created these fictitious hadith. They created fictitious hadith about jihad, which made it seem that if you do your homework really well, this is jihad. Yeah? If you're a doctor and you did the operation really well and the person they survived, this is jihad. They corrupted the understanding of jihad, brothers and sisters. They used their agents in the Muslim world to attack the concept of jihad, because they understood that the army of the Khilafah was undefeatable. They could not understand the Crusaders when they go to fight the Khilafah. Even the Christians who live in the Khilafah are fighting the Crusaders. They cannot understand this. What kind of people are these? Our own brothers in religion, the Christians, are fighting for the Khilafah. They could not understand that power. So they made a campaign against jihad, and not only a campaign against jihad, brothers and sisters, they made a campaign against Islam having any role in life. They wanted to change the aqeedah of the Muslims. The aqeedah of the Muslims has always been that this is a deen. Islam is a complete deen. Not only does it address what happens in your home, not only does it address what happens in your mosque, but it addresses what happens in the entire society, in the entire state, in the entire system. It is a comprehensive thing which has come to deal with every single issue. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, we have left nothing. We have left nothing out of this book. Has come to deal with every single matter. But the kuffar, they worked hard to separate the deen from the state and to establish this as an aqidah for the Muslims. Alhamdulillah, that is changing. But we have seen, even in our own lives, standing outside mosques and people saying, we don't talk about politics. That is a symptom of what the kuffar did when they destroyed the Khilafah. They made your deen simply praying 5 times a day and fasting in Ramadan. And it doesn't matter if you call the Labour MP into the mosque, the one who was supporting the Iraq war. This politics does not matter. But the politics of Islam, they tried to brush that under the carpet. They attacked the Arabic language. And then ultimately they attacked the Islamic State physically in war. So when the Islamic State entered the World War in 1914, it was already weak. And when it left, it was destroyed. The British destroyed the Khilafah with the help of Mustafa Kemal. Never forget that. Never forget that fact, yeah? That it was the British government, who worked tirelessly to destroy the Khilafah and works tirelessly today to prevent its return. And you might say, no, who said the British wanted to destroy the Khilafah? This is just some anti-British, anti-Western propaganda. It's not propaganda. The British, they went to Lausanne in Switzerland, and they said, we have 4 conditions. We are going to recognize the independence of Turkey, but there are 4 conditions. Number 1, the complete abolition of the Khilafah, expulsion of the Khalifa, and seizure of his property. The first condition of the British. Somebody said, no, the British government, they are the friend of Islam and the Muslims. They never did anything with the Khilafah. What's the first condition? Destroy the Khilafah. Not only that, expel the Khalif. Not only that, seize his property. That's just condition 1. Condition number 2, Turkey must promise to suppress any movement undertaken by the supporters of the Khilafah. They are doing that today. They are locking up and jailing and oppressing the ones who call for the Khilafah in Turkey today. This was the agreement with the British. Number 3, Turkey must cut her link with Islam. Blatant. Turkey must cut her link with Islam. Number 4, Turkey must have a secular constitution and cannot have a constitution derived from the rules of Islam. Very clear, brothers and sisters. Abolish the Khilafah, expel the Khalifa, seize his property, suppress those who call for it, who work for it, cut the links with Islam, throw Islam from the constitution, throw Islam in the dustbin. That was what Britain wanted the Khilafah to do. Lloyd George, famous British Prime Minister, he delivered a speech at the Guildhall on the 8th of November 1919. And this is what he said, and this tells you his attitude towards the Khilafah. The peace terms have been fully approved by the Allies, especially those terms concerning the Ottoman Caliphate. And the whole of Europe unanimously agrees that the evil and rotten Ottoman rule must be eradicated from the lands inhabited by the Greeks, the Armenians and the Arabs. Very clear. Lloyd George speaking on behalf of Europe, that Europe has agreed to eradicate the Ottoman rule from the Arabs, from the Greeks, from the Armenians. And finally, brothers and sisters, the destruction of the Khilafah in 1924. Mustafa Kemal was the one, he went to the assembly and he put forward a decree enjoining the abolition of the Khilafah. And he said this, and I quote, "We must at all costs safeguard the endangered republic and make her rise upon a solid scientific basis. The Khalifa and the legacies of the Ottoman family must go. The dilapidated religious courts and their laws must be replaced by modern courts and laws. And the cleric schools, the schools of the ulama, must concede their place to official secular schools." On the morning of the 28th of Rajab 1342, the 3rd day of March 1924, it was announced that the Greater National Assembly of Turkey had approved the abolition of the Khilafah and the separation of the deen from the state. And on that very night, Mustafa Kemal, he sent an order to the governor of Istanbul, telling him that the Khalifa Abdul Majid should leave Turkey before Fajr on the next day. So the governor went with a garrison from the police, to the palace of the Khalif in the middle of the night. The Khalifa was forced to climb into a cart that took him across the border. And 2 days later, brothers and sisters, Mustafa Kemal, he gathered all of the people of the Uthmani Khilafah, the ones who were in positions of ruling, and he deported them outside the country. And in this way, brothers and sisters, the Khilafah was destroyed, and Mustafa Kemal implemented the conditions of the British, which were demanded by Lord Curzon, who was the Foreign Secretary of Britain at that time. So that agreement, the Lausanne Agreement, it was signed in 1924, and all of those states, they recognized the independence of Turkey. Why? Because the constitution was no longer Islamic. They had agreed to suppress anyone who calls for Khilafah. They have destroyed the Khilafah, they have expelled the Khalif, and they have severed any link between the state and Islam. And after that happened, some English MPs in the House of Parliament, they protested against Curzon. They said, why have you accepted the independence of Turkey? And Curzon replied, the pointer issue is this, that Turkey has been destroyed and shall never rise again, because we have destroyed her spiritual power, the Khilafah and Islam. Very clear. The House of Commons, he said very clearly, Turkey will never rise again. We have destroyed the Khilafah. We have destroyed the spiritual power, the Khilafah and Islam. The Times newspaper, of all the vast changes caused by war, the downfall of, and this is talking about some of the empires, the Habsburgs, the Romanovs, the Hohenzollerns, the resurrection of ancient states and the rise of states unknown before, the evolution of novel forms of government and the emergence of new ideas and new feeling among mankind. And this is the main point, this is the main thing they said. No single change is more striking to the imagination than is this. And few perhaps may prove so important in their ultimate results. So the Times newspaper understood that there was no single change which is more striking to the imagination than this, and the results of this would be extremely important. Brothers and sisters, this is how the Khilafah was destroyed, completely destroyed, and unfortunately, Islam's presence in the world at that time was destroyed, as a state constitution, as a source of legislation, and as a way of life. And all of this was at the hands of the British through their collaborator and agent Mustafa Kemal. Look at all of the things that were done to destroy the Khilafah. Nationalism, dumbing down Islam, reforming Islam, saying Islam is just a religion. There's no state, there's no system, there's no ruler, there's no jihad. Dividing the Muslims based on nationality, saying Islam is backward, Islam treats women like this. All of that thing is happening today. Because the West knows that the power, that latent power is still in Islam and still in this ummah. And that if this ummah discover her Islam today, then that Khilafah will return faster than the blink of an eye.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفره إنه كان توابا
متى سنظل رقودا نغرق في النوم ونشخر وعن الآذان نصم ونغمض كي لا نبصر دقت أجراس الخطر والحالة جاءت تنذر بمتى نتقاعس قولوا من يمنع زحف المنكر مات الإحساس فصرنا من غير فؤاد